Wow, you look really great in that pinky, whatever
Yeah,
color that is.
it's
It looks
actually kind
amazing.
of red pink thing, but the necklace is what I got
Yeah.
from the Afghan women when so I'll talk about that a little bit.
Yes, that would be great. That's such a great story. I love that. Well, good.
Oh
So
yeah,
you had a
been a
good
wonderful
week?
week and really busy,
Good.
really uh, things happening like they're happening in your life. They've been popping up around here too. And today's Helene's 66th birthday.
Wow. Happy birthday to Helene. Well, yeah, that's right. Because Casey will be
Yeah,
66 in
they were
November.
bosom
Uh,
buddies.
yes, they were. Well, so are you doing anything to
No, she
celebrate
just
her
got
birthday?
back from a 10-day trip to Hawaii for with her
You know,
girlfriends. So
I saw follow her on Instagram and
yeah,
I saw that she was there.
yeah,
So that's lovely.
yeah. So it's a good day, and it's an interesting new moon, isn't it?
It is. And so I have a question for you about that. Do you, at this age that you are at, I will say happy birthing day to you. Do you always think about the day that that particular child was born and that birth
Oh
experience?
yeah,
And
oh yeah, yeah. She was born at home. David were both
yeah.
Beth. Her name was Beth at that time. So when she went to college, she claimed her first name. Her name is Helena Elizabeth. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I remember that. And Leah, my older daughter, was 8, and the school bus was pulling up outside in front of the house, and she goes running out. I mean, Helena's just barely been born. We just got things kind of sort of cleaned up and stuff, and she goes running out, and she gets the kids that are getting on the bus. She yells at them. She says, "My baby sister's just been born. You want to see her?" And they all come traipsing in, and I'm sitting there all kind of walky-eyed, and this bunch of little kids,
Wow.
8-year-olds, coming in to see their baby sister.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
sweet. Yeah, very different experience having a baby at home versus
right.
having one in the hospital. That is for sure. I was going for all three home births, but my oldest, because I was in labor for 2.5 days and it was just going on for too long, they decided that I should go to the hospital and they gave me Pitocin and then I was able to push him out.
Yeah,
Say it
and
again.
yeah, go to the hospital first.
Um,
Yeah, there's a place.
you're coming in.
There's a place for
Go ahead.
everything. And some babies need to be born, and
Yeah.
all 4 of my others were born in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just such a different experience because they panicked and thought he wasn't breathing right, so they cut the umbilical cord really quick and then whisked him away to the NICU. So within literally 5 minutes of
Uh,
having this child, I was alone in the room. And I was like, yeah, no, do get me out of here. I need to go be with that baby of mine. So yeah, it was just so interesting. And then the other two, I was in the bathtub minutes after with herbs in the water and all kinds of beautiful things. So yeah, so interesting how everyone chooses. This is a good segue. How people choose to come into this life and how people
yeah,
choose
yeah.
to exit
And the
this life.
things that uh, we are afraid of at the time of both births. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross
Mm-hmm.
and I used to enjoy sharing the platform and she called it birthing babies into the other dimension, and I called it birthing babies into this dimension. It was really, it was an experience that we really enjoyed.
Well, because having been at both a birth and death, the energy is so similar.
It's from femifestation into manifestation, and then on the other side, it's the manifestation into femifestation. It's that transition. It's passing the veil, which we don't really know how to talk about, because we have never, we don't really spend time with these things. But I think it's really important for us to spend time thinking about birthing. And well, we did that whole episode on abortion, and maybe we should need to talk sometime just about the birthing process. But John my son John has a thing that he came across that is not a poem. It's a article, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is really, I think, worthwhile us hearing about death. We're kind of scared of the word. We're almost afraid to speak it. But I think we need not only to speak it, but to try to understand as much as we can what happens at the point of breath. Well, isn't that interesting? Point of death, as we take our last breath, and think about it when we take our first breath. Anyway, I'd like to have my son John. He's retired Presbyterian minister, and he's here with me, helping me keep my breath going. So, John, would you?
Before he reads that, I just want to say, before I lose this in the chat, that Edna Mae Borowski, Seal Butch's widow, is on today, if you know who that is. And somebody else, Louise Graham, says, Dr. Gladys delivered 2 of my children using acupuncture. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is
Hey, John.
from a death doula. And
I think you should come closer to
what?
the camera so we can hear you
She
better.
wants to get closer to the camera.
Oh, okay.
Or you want to see him?
No.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it'll be clearer to hear.
Well, here, you want to turn this around, and
I guess so, but
you don't
I
need
have
to
to
be.
move the whole thing.
Okay. All right.
I didn't do hair.
Yeah. Oh, well.
So,
I didn't do mine either.
this is from a death doula and ritual healing practitioner by the name of Sarah Carr. And she says it's about expected death. And it says, when someone dies, the first thing to do is nothing. Don't run out and call the nurse. Don't pick up the phone. Just take a deep breath and be present to the magnitude of the moment. There's a grace to being at the bedside of someone you love as they make their transition out of this world. At the moment they take their last breath, there's an incredible sacredness in the space. The veil between the worlds opens. We're so unprepared and untrained in how to deal with death that sometimes a kind of panic response kicks in. They're dead. We knew they were going to die, so their being dead is not a surprise. It's not a problem to be solved. It's very sad, but it's not cause to panic. If anything, their death is cause to take a deep breath, to stop and be really present to what's happening. If you're at home, maybe put the kettle on and make a cup of tea. Sit at the bedside and just be present to the experience in the room. What's happening for you? What might be happening for them? What other presences are here that might be supporting them on their way? Tune into all the beauty and magic. Pausing gives your soul a chance to adjust, because no matter how prepared we are, a death is still a shock. If we kick right into do something mode and call 911 or call the hospice, we never get a chance to absorb the enormity of the event. Give yourself 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes just to be. You'll never get that time back again if you don't take it now. After that, do the smallest thing you can. Call the one person who needs to be called. Engage whatever systems need to be engaged, but engage them at the very most minimal level. Move really, really, really slowly, because this is a period where it's easy for body and soul to get separated. Our bodies can gallop forwards, but sometimes our souls haven't caught up. If you have an opportunity to be quiet and be present, take it. Accept and acclimatize and adjust to what's happening. Then as the train starts rolling and all the things that happen after a death kick in, you'll be better prepared. You won't get a chance to catch your breath later on. You need to do it now. Being present in the moments after death is an incredible gift to yourself, and it's a gift to the people you're with, and it's a gift to the person who's just died. They're just a hair's breadth away. They're just starting their new journey in the world without a body. If you keep a calm space around their body and in the room, they're launched in a more beautiful way. It's a service to both sides of the veil. And that's what she had to say. Yeah. Here's flashback.
I think
Really,
it's
really lovely.
a really deep message for all of us who have a chance to hear it, because we hear all kinds of wackadoodle stuff, and so you don't know. So this way, if we can really understand what's happening and take the time to feel that and know it and understand it, it's a gift we can give each other.
John, somebody's asking who wrote that.
It's Sarah Carr. SARAHKERR.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Great. Thank you.
It's beautiful, and
Yeah.
I think is something that we can share with joy with people. They're we don't know how to celebrate death. There are other cultures that do a better job than we do. We just don't know. We don't talk about it. We don't even explain to our children what happens when somebody dies or a dog dies or something. It's really our privilege and our path as we walk it ourselves to understand that this is a part of everybody's life. So there's something we can share.
Mm. Yeah, it's, I would agree that we don't do it well in this country. And, you know, partly, I think, like you were saying last week, I think about just the elderly and how we've just, you know, shoved them into nursing care facilities and they're over medicated and all of that. And I just feel like that that reality removes them from being present to what's happening and the shutting down
And
of their
isn't it
own
a
body.
privilege that we have the opportunity to talk to each other right now about this? What a
Mhm.
wonderful time in our lives that we get to actually say to each other, you know, these are things that we can think about. And I'm grateful, really, that when Anna Leah died, my son Bob and I just sat there. And we didn't really talk about it beforehand, but everybody that was concerned had come and said their goodbyes and love and so on. And she moved on very quietly, just stopped breathing. And we just sat there, you know, there wasn't anything else to do. But this beautiful explanation of what there is to do as we allow that journey to start, you know, and particularly for a parent to be able to, you know, we started this journey together, and now it's a time to end it and then let it go. And it's a such a sacred time that it's so wonderful to be able to share it and understand that the person who's making the transition and we are in sync with each other and not running around trying to resuscitate or something when the time has come, because there is a time for each one of us. And the more we can understand about it, the less scary it is.
But do you think that, because when I think about like tragic death or, you know, when it happens quickly and let's say it is a child,
Oh,
there's so much
yes.
grief that 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 I feel like it sounds like the death of Anna Leah for you was because of your understanding and because of your own level of awareness. You know, you had processed what was happening, and so you were able to be there for that transition and not grasping for her, like, don't leave me, you know. And so I feel like there are so many people that are grasping to hang on to the
and that
person
makes
that
it
is
harder
leaving.
for them. But sometimes we have no premonition. Sometimes it happens fast. It's a scary
Mm-hmm.
thing that happens. But there are times when a person has some type of uh, experience within their own body that it's time to let go of life. And as we begin to understand that, it doesn't it doesn't mitigate the grief, because there's nothing that you can explain to yourself about sadness. Sadness, when we're sad, is sad. I mean, even talking about it makes you tear up, you know. It's a sad time that happens. But those are part of the experiences of life. And if we can place them, or place ourselves within some kind of loving space with that experience, then it becomes something that's very sacred. It doesn't mean that it's not sad. It doesn't mean that you're not going to grieve and that there's not going to be heartache and all of that. But it's sacred. It's not just something that, oh, it's terrible and you don't participate in it.
Yeah, and I feel that so many people don't want to talk about it because they're afraid of dying.
Sure.
I mean,
because
what's on the other side, and where are they going to go? And I don't want to leave this place, and I don't want to leave my children, and you know, all of those things. So it just feels really scary. So let's just not talk about it.
And then what happens, you know? And so if we can talk about it, if we can begin to understand not the TV death thing, you know, or whatever we've seen or read in books and so on, that's, I'm sure they're good renditions of how a person can actually experience death. But unless we've thought about it and really given ourselves time to experience that, and sometimes it's like my mother and dad, they'd been married 75 years, and she was in the process of dying, and Dad stayed with her the night before she died, but had stayed through the next day. And finally she said to him, "John, go get your lunch." And because he was sitting there by her bedside, and he went to get his lunch and she died. The thing was that they were so connected that he just couldn't let her go until she asked him to go get his lunch, and he responded to her ask and did what she had asked him to do, but he felt really badly about it. He and I talked about it a long time afterwards, while he was trying to allow himself the reality that he just couldn't let her go. And her saying that to him had given him not just the permission, but asked him please to let her go.
Right. Wow. And so I'm curious about your thoughts around assisted death, where, you know, some knows that they have a terminal cancer or whatever, and they don't want to stay till the end. They want to create their own end before the suffering gets too great. It's a
very, very personal thing, because I specifically know one man who was a really close friend of the family and so on, and he had a brain tumor and had all the treatment for it and all of that, and still for about 20 years he carried this difficult thing in his head while the medical world was trying to work with it. And finally, he got to the point where he couldn't walk properly and he couldn't do things properly. And it just was too much. And so he created his own time for doing that, and actually let us know what he was going to do. And you know, we blessed him as we could and let him do what he could, what he needed to do. It was his soul's journey. And I
Mhm.
think that we need to listen to people when they're talking about this, because maybe we could talk them out of it. And we had talked him out of it several times. But there came a time when it was his time. And he
Right.
took it, and it was very peaceful, and we all uh, realized it, and you know, celebrated it.
Mhm. Yeah. Did I ever tell you about
No,
my dad's
but
death
then I'll tell
story?
you about my dad's death. Yeah, go ahead.
My, my dad was about to turn 90, and we were having a big family gathering up at my sister's house up in Northern California. And so all of my sisters and all the grandkids, everybody was flying in and driving in and getting there. And so I had arrived the day before with my three kids. And my dad was gonna, it was on a Wednesday, and he was gonna cook the food, and he was cooking the food for the party that we were gonna have on Saturday. And the food was, I don't know if you ever came over to our house for Mexican burros, but
Uh-huh.
it's kind of like a enchilada. Um, it's a burro, but he called it, they were burros. They were served enchilada style. So anyway, we always had it for our big family things. And so it was really fun that dad was going to make burros. So my boys went with him, and they spent all day cooking with him because he wanted to teach them how to do it. And they were making guacamole and salsa and all the things. And I kept telling my dad, I was like, why are you making guacamole 2 days before a party? You know it's going to get icky and nobody's going to want it, or we're going to eat it before the party. And he was insisting that he make it. And I was like, all right, whatever, dad, do what you got to do. So, yeah, my sister Kristen is saying, I'm glad you're telling about the dad story. So they make the food, they get it all ready all day long, and so it was in the afternoon, and I was at the house, and my dad was there, and my sister and my mom and the kids, and he at the time had a catheter, and so my sister looks at me and she said, you need to take dad to the bathroom to um, drain the catheter. And I said, yeah, fine, okay. So we walked to the bathroom, and he was like holding onto the wall and gasping for air. And I was like, are you okay, dad? Are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I think I'm okay. I was like, all right, fine. So then we walked back to the dining room, and he did the same thing. And he was really panting and kind of trying to hang on. And at that moment, he collapsed, and I managed to catch him, and I managed to get his bottom onto a dining room chair. And so he was leaning forward. He was sitting in the chair, and he was leaning forward, and his head was on the back of a dining room chair. And he was just leaning forward like this. And I was kneeling on one side, and my sister Kelly was kneeling on the other side. And we had our hands on his back, and we were just saying, dad, you're doing great. Just, keep breathing, and, you're good, and we love you. And I look at my sister Kelly, and I said, is this normal? Because she's the one that was really the caregiver for them. Or do we need to call 911? And she was like, I think we should call. So we call 911, and we say, dad, oxygen is on its way. It's coming. Just hang in there. We love you so much. You're doing great. And then she looks at me and she said, is he still breathing? And I leaned down to look back up at his face, and I said, no, he's not. So we just laid him down on the carpet, and I had my meditation beads, and we put them on his chest, and we had flowers that were on the dining room table for the party that we were going to have. And we put them all around his body. And we still had people arriving, and we had to call them and say, okay, Dad just died. And they arrived. And so anyway, the whole thing, it was exactly as John mentioned. We ended up sitting around, lighting a candle. We passed the candle around to each one of us, and we said whatever it was we needed to say about Dad. And then we sang a few of our family songs that we always used to sing together. And that was it. And that was pretty much the funeral. Like, we never had a actual funeral. We just did that. And then 2 days later, we ate the food that he had prepared for us for his birthday. Most amazing exit. I mean, it was just, yeah, my sister Kristen is saying it was beautiful. It was such a powerful weekend, and we were just all there celebrating his life, and it was just amazing. And the fact that he had cooked the food for us, like every bite we ate, it was like, thanks, Dad. Like, thank you for doing that for us. It was so beautiful.
I love it. I love it. Let me tell you my dad's story. You know, my and Dad were medical missionaries in India, but they were here now, and he was 93, and my mother had died a few years before, and he had remarried, so he had Mother Daniels and so on, and we were all very happy about that. He married my brother's mother-in-law. I mean, so it was kind of you know,
okay.
So he was living with my brother. They were in Pennsylvania anyway. And one day he said to Mother Daniels, he said, we need to go to Phoenix because Mom was buried out here. And he was having trouble getting over some respiratory problem and wasn't feeling well. So when I knew they were coming, Bill and I, my husband and I, thought we'd probably have to have a stretcher and have him come off the plane, but not my dad. He walked off the plane, walked down to the car, and we actually took him the next day into the hospital, and he was there for a couple of weeks. And then Mother, excuse me, he was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And then one morning, Mother Daniels and I went down to the hospital because he was fading. You know, he was just not quite as conscious as he was before. But Mother Daniels stood by his bedside and sang, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. And my dad's lips moved with her as she sang that. And so when she had finished singing it, she tried to said it again, sang it again, and he drew his last breath. It was, we were standing there watching this process, him allowing himself to move on. And so on the way home, when Mother Daniels and I were crying and celebrating and so on, she said, or I said to her, I said to her, don't you know there's a celebration on the other side? And no, she said that. And I said, yeah, I can see Mom standing there saying, now, John, come on, it's time. And so as we drove home, we were able to create a scene for ourselves that was joyful, you know, and celebratory, whatever that word is. But it was a wonderful, wonderful passage for this great man who had done many great things, you know.
Right.
And the fact that Mother Daniels was able to release him that way to my mother, who I know was receiving him from the other side. And it was a beautiful transition of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I do think it makes it easier when it's someone who has lived a long life and you can say, oh, they've done this, that, and the other thing. And, it does make it easier to
they're
celebrate.
And you know that they are prepared. You know that they're not hanging on just because they're scared of dying. I mean, there was no fear in either my mother's passage or my dad's passage. It was just what it was.
Yeah. And I'm going to just turn the wrench a little bit, because my kids are 29, 26, and 24. And in the last 10 years, they have lost probably 10 of their friends to fentanyl overdose. And that is just such a whole different level of processing grief and death and the loss of a 20-year-old, it's just really I mean, it takes on all these different versions, just like birth does, right? You can have an easy, beautiful birth, you can have a traumatic birth, all the things. But it's been a very interesting process for me as their mother to witness them going through what that does to them.
And I'm thinking right along with this are the young men who are shooting other people. It's a very sad state where we don't really understand death well enough that a young man could come up and just shoot another person. It just, we talk about that. But I really think that it's important that this is a very heartfelt episode that every one of us is going to have to go through, because we got here with our first breath and we'll stay here until we take our last breath, and we're still the same person. We're still who we are, who we came to be, we were able to do the things that we were able to do, and when the time comes, we'll move on. But it's not that we're going to be erased. It's moving into the next dimension, and it's there. It's just there.
Yeah. So do you, in your thought of your own death, do you, I feel like I don't want to have any regrets when I die, right? So who would? We want to know that we've lived our life to our fullest, and we've expressed and we've loved and we've done all the things, and we can do them to the best of our ability, because we never know when
Right.
we're going to take our last breath. Um, but as we are moving on in our life and we're getting older, and we know that at some point that road is going to come to an end on this physical plane, do you feel like you are at peace with how your life has gone and what you've, and this may be a super too
No.
personal question to ask you in this.
I kind of think of it like this. It's when I go to sleep at night, I move into the dream world. Now, maybe it's as simple as that. I go to sleep and, ooh, yeah, what's this? It's, I have not experienced my own death consciously. I've experienced a lot of deaths of people that I've loved and worked with and helped and been part of, the process. So people ask me, how long do you think you're going to live? And I say, as long as I have work to do. And I'll try to keep doing the work that I came to do. And the amazing thing about it is, look at what we're able to do now. I can't imagine myself trying to imagine being able to talk to this audience like you and I are doing, Katie. Is the
right.
actual opportunity to have the time and the ability to talk about things that are so important to our souls is just awesome. It's just absolutely awesome. And it kind of, for me, it reactivates the times that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and I used to do this, the birth and death aspect.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting conversation, and putting them one next to one another. And it's interesting because I was having this very conversation this weekend with a neighbor of mine. We have another neighbor who is maybe almost 90, and she is dying. And, my friend is very close with her, and so she said that they're having very open conversations about death. And it's just interesting because the woman who's dying really doesn't think that there's anything after, like it's just you're done. And I find that interesting. And I think I would think that was a little scary if I thought I'm just done here. And I like the idea that energy never is destroyed, and it just moves on, and it moves on. And then we also have our neighbor who is due to have a baby in 10 days. So it's just, right next to one another.
It's because you live in a village for living medicine.
Yes, I do live in a village for living medicine. That is absolutely true. And it's amazing.
Right.
Such a good conversation. Which I think we should have again, because it's important, as you said.
We appreciate comments from our audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of people sending hearts, saying amazing. Someone said, it's hard to give comfort to my friend, grandmother of one who passed from heroin. Yeah.
Sometimes you can do is hold them. If you're there and just be there for them, because there has to be a place for grief.
Right. And then the woman who, Edna May, who commented before, she said, my late husband's father was
Oh.
Dr. David Seal.
My cousin.
Yes,
Yeah.
his cousin.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So she is on. Am I
Yeah.
saying that right? Is it Seal?
So,
Okay.
yes. Wow.
Yeah. Um,
How lo- thank
and right
yeah.
people.
It- uh, Talking about death and reconnect as a family. How lovely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Somebody saying, grateful to have landed here. So awesome to tune into this combo. Excited to learn more about your work. We are here every Tuesday at 1:00 Eastern, unless something has arisen and Dr. Gladys's very busy schedule of interviews and podcasts and whatever gets in the way. But we've been pretty good lately. Nothing has gone away. So somebody saying, I wish my mother could have heard you before she died in March of chronic myeloid leukemia. Yeah. And my sister was saying, this was wonderful and much needed conversation.
Yeah.
So we will continue. And if you all out there have any questions or thoughts about it, just put them in, just put them in the, you could message, send it on Instagram, and we'll take a look at it, and then we can talk about it next week. So with that, I feel like we should close the conversation.
What?
You do have a website.
I do have a website, yes.
Yeah. Her website is drgladysmcgarey.com. Oh, sorry. I stand corrected. It is just GladysMcGarey.com. Somebody, Barbara Haley, is saying, I am a huge Dr. Gladys fan. Somebody saying, is this live posted? It was amazing. Yes, it will be posted once we get off. John will save that, and you'll be able to go on this Dr. Gladys's Instagram page, and you'll be able to rewatch it, or you could share it with other people. Somebody else is saying, I love that you stated you still have work to do regardless of the number of days that have passed or to come. Yeah.
Great.
Every day.
Yep.
Gotta use it every day. So anyway, great conversation. I love you so much.
My lap.
John,
thank you for
say it again.
being on my lap when you collapse. Your dream, your visualization process.
My meditation vision this morning, I was sitting with Dr. Gladys, and I was in her lap, and she was holding me, and it was an incredibly special moment to be held by such a beautiful woman with so much great energy and all the. So thank you. And yes, so John will save this after this, and you will all be able to go back and watch it again. We'll be back next Tuesday. And
thank
Gladys,
you,
have an
everybody.
amazing week.
What a time to share this information. Thank you.
Yes. So until next week, we will say goodbye.
Bless you,
and I will
you
see
all.
you later. Bye.
Well, that was worthwhile.